Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear, the podcast conversation about accelerating the transition to a sustainable, carbon-neutral society. I'm your host, Mitch Ratcliffe. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. The aluminum industry famously claims that 75% of all aluminum ever produced is still in use. It's a highly recyclable material. Reusing 1 ton of aluminum reduces by 8 tons the need to mine raw bauxite, the ore from which aluminum is made, and saves 14,000 kilowatt hours of energy, enough electricity to power 1 U.S. home for an entire year. The EPA's last aluminum recycling statistics, which come from 2018, suggest that 50.4% of drink cans distributed in the United States were recycled that year. And that overall, across all uses of aluminum, only 34.9% of the material is recycled. So that aluminum foil and the other applications are not necessarily getting back to the transfer station and to the recyclers. And recycling rates in the United States do not compare favorably with Europe, where recycling rates are consistently above 70%, or China, which reported 99.5% can recovery rates, or Brazil, a country that, according to Packaging Europe, collects almost 100% of its aluminum beverage cans. Today, we're going to explore how we can make one of the most recycled materials even more sustainable with Jennifer Bogs, Director of Global Sustainability at Crown Holdings. They're one of the largest can manufacturers in the world at $12.9 billion a year in sales. Crown has announced aggressive carbon reduction and environmental goals that are part of its 20 by 30 program. It has reduced Scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions, those directly associated with its manufacturing activities, by 12% since 2019, while increasing production of cans by more than 8 billion. That means its Scope 3 emissions rose by 25%. And like many companies, Scope 3 is where much of Crown's opportunity to improve lies in the coming years. The company also recently reported that it has increased the use of renewable energy to 34% of its total energy use, and it's on the path to 75% renewable use by 2030. It also has said that it has reduced volatile organic compound emissions by 6% since 2019 and diverts 98.1% of its waste from manufacturing and other facilities from entering landfills or being incinerated. So we'll dig into how Crown is working to activate and educate employees in its dozens of manufacturing and office locations around the globe. Let's dig into how Crown is working to activate and educate employees in dozens of manufacturing and office locations around the globe about sustainability. So let's crack open the Crown story. You can learn more about Crown at crowncork.com. Crown Cork is all one word, no space, no dash. And by the way, that mention of cork in the URL reflects Crown's legacy as Crown Cork and Seal Company, which was founded in 1892. Welcome to the show, Jennifer. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Mitch. I'm doing well. How are you?
It's a lovely morning in the Seattle area. Always good not to have a smoke event going on. Unfortunately, most of the country can't say that, but we can.
That is true. We have blue skies here where I'm sitting out of in Chicago area for the first time in several days.
Oh, it's been ugly there. I'm sorry to hear that you're in Chicago for that reason. Now,
yeah.
Jennifer, tell me how you ended up leading sustainability. You're Director of Global Sustainability for the second largest can manufacturer in the world. What's your background?
Yes, so it's been a interesting career path, I will say, and one that I truly, genuinely have loved. I got my start in environmental compliance, having an environmental science background, and worked with some of the world's largest food and beverage companies in working on their environmental compliance. And of course, hand in hand with that are often many sustainability topics. And so I've made the transition over to sustainability full time.
So Crown has laid out top line environmental goals in what is described as the 20 by 30 program. Can you summarize those goals and what's the trajectory to get there?
Absolutely. I would be happy to. Thank you. So our 20 by 30 program is what it sounds like. It is a collection of 20 goals that Crown as a company is going to work to achieve by the year 2030. We have 5 what we call pillars of the 20 by 30 program. In those are your traditional climate action pillar, We have resource efficiency pillar, which covers water, as well as in the optimum circularity pillar, focusing on items such as increasing our aluminum recycling rates and as well as the recycled content of our products. Our working together pillar, we have goals to increase the engagement of our employees globally, as well as to reduce our impact on safety metrics, specifically our total recordable incident rate. And our never compromise pillar focuses on more of the science-based factors that we can improve on as a company in order to better serve our customers, such as increasing the focus of our R&D footprint to be focused on sustainability initiatives, as well as to ensure that our customers are receiving products that are void of chemicals of concern, and as well as to assess the supply chain potential risks that we face in this ever-growing area of responsible and ethical sourcing. And so
I understand. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I understand that you're using the base year of 2019 from which you're measuring your progress. How will all of these efforts change the environmental profile of Crown over the course of the decade?
Sure. Well, we're going to be a company that has less of an environmental footprint over the course of the decade. So we have pledged to and are striving toward our science-based target initiative reduction to reduce our scope 1 and scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030. By the way, we also have a net zero goal by 2040. And as well, we also have scope 3 reduction goals. We have a aggressive water reduction target of reducing our water usage 20% by the end of 2025. And as well, we are working to reduce and lightweight our packaging products. So together with all of these, you're going to see Crown have less of an environmental footprint and putting less of a stress on our world.
When you say net zero in 2040, does that mean net zero with carbon offsets and credits, or does that mean truly achieving net zero? And we'll talk more in depth later about this, but just to start off, can you set the stage?
Sure. So Crown joined on as part of the climate pledge, and we've pledged a net zero by 2040 goal, which does allow for carbon offsets and the such. However, I will say stay tuned on this for more progress from Crown. We are putting together our net zero plan right now. And so likely next year you will see this being published. And with it, probably there will be a shift in our goals.
Okay, interesting. We'll be staying tuned for that. Now, in the 2022 sustainability report that Crown recently released, there's a materiality assessment which emphasizes different areas that will have the greatest impact on your carbon and environmental footprint. And I want to ask about a few of those areas. Employees. How are you engaging your employees to apply environmental and social goals in their day-to-day decision-making?
Sure, absolutely. So engaging our employees is not only one of our 20 by 30 goals, but it's also something that is very important for the company as a whole as we look to engage, retain, and really leverage to best that we can our biggest asset, which are our employees. So we have a few different programs that are very formal, and as well we have less formal activity that we see organically cropping up throughout the organization. Some examples of this include we have a charitable giving program, which is the 20 by 30 charitable giving program. And through this, which we launched the other year, we've seen really great input from different facilities on donations to charities that are near and dear to the employees that we have at Crown globally. And so this is a program that supports, or rather that all of our divisions support, and by which our employees are very actively recommending different charities that they may advocate for charitable contributions to. So it's been really special to see that. You can see some of the charities highlighted in our recent sustainability report that we've supported through this. Also, we have a annual Chairman's Sustainability Awards, and through the Chairman's Awards, we recognize great achievement in a few different areas of sustainability throughout the company. And so that has been something that has been really, I don't want to say that it's competitive, Mitch, but
But it's encouraging people.
it really does. It does. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see that level of interest and focus across the company with the Chairman's Awards. We also have an employee newsletter that focuses on sustainability. We have a couple other newsletters for employees, of course, but we have one that is dedicated to sustainability that we put out several times a year. And so through that, we encourage our employees to be more sustainable, both in the business and at home.
Do you also offer green benefits or ride sharing, other things that help them reduce their direct impact from their employment and their personal life?
So right now we do not, but that is something that I think that Crown would definitely be open to doing in the future. Right now, our total Scope 3 emissions, as you may guess, is not as heavily based on that employee aspect of our business. Obviously we're different
Sure.
from some other business models there being in manufacturing, but definitely that's always an option.
Now, another area of focus is your relationship with customers, which of course are the beverage companies, not the consumers who are buying the cans that the beverages come in. The report refers to aligning with beverage can customers' sustainability goals and creating partnerships. So how are you doing that? Are you co-investing with them to reach consumers with better recycling options?
So yes, partnering with and aligning with our customers is one of our key responsibilities, not only in the company, of course, but also in sustainability. And our customers really help shape our sustainability trajectory and also our commitments. So you'll see that reflected in the outcome of our materiality assessment, of course, but
Mhm.
also you see that in terms of that our sustainability program is shaped very heavily by discussions that we have with our customers. We of course, in sustainability, have these discussions on a routine basis with our key customers, also our suppliers. And so, but back to our customers, so their goals help shape our goals, of course. So we want to help our customers do everything that they can to achieve their sustainability goals. And that is what Crown is here for. So we work with them on things such as the lightweighting,
Mm.
things such as increasing our recycled content. And we do that within our own company. As you'll see with our 20 by 30 program, we do have our lightweighting goals and our
Mhm.
recycled content, our recycling rate goals, but also we do this in terms of our industry group associations and as well as some of the activities that stem from those. So you'll see Crown active in different engagements via our industry groups. We work with Every Can Counts. We work with Metal Packaging Europe and Can Manufacturers Institute globally, as well as others globally, such as Aberlatis and CanFM. And in those industry groups, we help to shape many things, such as working to increase recycling rates, which of course then in turn increases recycled content.
Mm.
We work on things such as education and getting out the key marketing messages, such as even just that little metal recycles forever, infinite recycling logo that you see
Mm.
on our products. So we work with our customers on that. As well, we've discussed with our customers more specific projects, such as potentially partnering on water replenishment projects, maybe even renewable energy projects.
Now, another area was supply chain partners, and you've already mentioned your Scope 3 emissions, which are a complex issue for every organization. Are you in the process of requiring transparency from your vendors? And how are you going to roll out that obligation to tell you what their emissions are so you can calculate your Scope 3 emissions?
Yes, absolutely. So Crown is very blessed to work with very sophisticated suppliers. And in fact, many of our suppliers have their own validated, verified emission factors and the likes, recycled content included there. And so our suppliers are very sophisticated in many ways. So that is, of course, very helpful. And yes, we currently do require transparency in sustainability in terms of the data that we receive from our suppliers. So we have requirements to report to us things such as recycled content and the emissions as well that are associated with their production.
Did you have to take steps towards that requirement? Because the companies simply weren't ready to do it. And did you set a deadline for that to happen?
So yes and no. It has been something that has organically happened over the course of the past several years as sustainability has become more in the forefront of our contracts with our customer or suppliers, excuse me. So we have worked with them on getting this data, and really it hasn't been too much of a pushback. You'll see the aluminum industry as a whole, like I mentioned, is very sophisticated, and themselves, they already have out a aluminum net zero roadmap. So it has maybe not been as difficult as it might be in some other industries.
That's actually very encouraging to hear. Now, another issue in the materiality report was the focus on products. And you have announced a goal of an 80% recycling rate for your products by the end of this decade. What do you think the key investments are to get from where we are today, which is around 52% recovery rates, to that 80% recycling rate?
So the key investments that I see in increasing the recycling rates globally will be pretty much the same in all of the countries, but of course varies a little bit. In fact, we're just wrapping up some of our research on this and in terms of the different levers that we can pull to improve the recycling rates in certain regions. So in order to do this, Mitch, we're going to need industry alignment and as well as commitments and partnerships with those across the value chain. And who I mean by those across the value chain are, of course, governmental institutions, also industry groups bringing us together, fellow can makers, suppliers, and of course, our distributors, retailers, and ultimately our customers as well. So we really need everyone in the value chain to align and come together on this. And the key levers that, as Crown sees it in conjunction as well with some of our industry group partners, is first, improving recycling access. Secondly, focusing on education for the consumers. Third, can capture is important to fund that. And then fourth and lastly would be supporting smart recycling policies. So improving the recycling access is going to take investments in terms of increasing the availability of at-home recycling for some of our markets where that may not exist, as well as having more recycling options on the go or when you're out in public. And then, of course, supporting consumer education and making sure that our consumers globally understand that when you do recycle a can, it does turn into another can very quickly. In about 60 days, you can see that can in some form back on the shelf. So, it really does differentiate itself from other materials where there may be a lack of enthusiasm for recycling because we're not sure as consumers whether when we put something in the blue bin or the green bin, whatever country you're in, that it actually does end up being recycled. So education is also key, as well as supporting can capture efforts on making sure that we support the material recovering facilities, that they have support financially to be able to separate and sort out more beverage cans.
One of the reasons that some countries have extraordinarily high rates, like China and Brazil, which are almost at 100% recovery, is that they have a lot of people who will pick trash. And that's because they can earn money from that. Do we need to increase the incentives by putting deposits on cans or otherwise in order to drive more, maybe even entrepreneurial activity around the recovery of aluminum in the United States?
So in the United States, Crown works through its industry group partner, CMI, or Can Manufacturers Institute, and we do encourage the adoption of smart deposits. So what that means is making sure, of course, that it makes sense for our customers, our distributors, the retailers, and of course, ultimately the consumer. So we're very focused on that effort and making sure that where there may not be deposits, that Crown supports a smart deposit system. And we're very cautious around that. We don't want to suggest that we would support just any deposit, but there really has to be a lot of thought into it and making sure that it could work for everyone that is a part of that process. But I think that there definitely is work that needs to be done globally as well as here in the US on supporting recycling policy. And we can't just leave it on any one business. It really does take everyone that's involved in consuming our product and manufacturing our product and distributing our product to get to that. And I don't think it might look the same everywhere depending on where you live. So we do
Sure.
support a variety of different ways to drive the recycling rates upward.
When you talk about a smart deposit system, it does need to be locally contextual. What's the role that government needs to play in enabling these systems, or can this be primarily a private effort?
So it's important for government to be able to bring together the interests of both the consumers, who ultimately are the ones that we collectively are relying on to recycle that can, and as well those that are making the can, distributing the can, filling the can, and putting their brand label on that can, to bring those two groups together. That is what I see and what Crown sees as the role that government has to play in this.
The other aspect of what you were just saying about the recovery rates and so forth is that can manufacturing is largely a regional business. You're all over the place. Can we close the loop a little bit more so that aluminum isn't shipped halfway around the world to be recycled before it is reused? And how could we use the tracking of those cans to better inform the consumer that this stuff came from them and came back to them, in so many words?
Yeah, absolutely. So Crown, we actually do have agreements with our suppliers, and we do ship back our unused or our scrap material directly to them. And so in that way, it is shipped back locally, so to speak, and then transported for recycling regionally, as you did say. So that is something that's already in place. And absolutely, I think that several of our customers, if not most of them, do have recycling branding on their products, so
Mhm.
that conveys to the consumer that the material can be recycled and therefore is of some recycled content as well.
If the average recycled content rate in cans today is about 73%, where do you all aim to have it by 2030?
So our aim is to have it up to 80% by 2030. That is our goal, together with our industry group here in the US, CMI. And so we will be working, and already are working, to achieve that through those levers that I've mentioned in terms of improving recycling access and education, the can capture, and the recycling policy support. And I don't think I mentioned, Mitch, but probably one of the coolest ways that we're doing that is to increase our can capture via some of the funding that we're doing for the MRFs to be able to better sort their equipment. And that's been something that Crown and through CMI has supported over the past several years.
You mentioned R&D and the importance of R&D investments earlier. Is that where some of that effort is going?
Some of the effort for the R&D is going toward areas such as lightweighting and looking at different ways that we can reduce the waste or spoilage in our facilities.
Okay. So not necessarily in better sorting equipment.
We not directly with Crown, that's not really our wheelhouse, but we do support the MRFs in obtaining more equipment so that they may
Okay.
better filter and recover the aluminum beverage can. Just being that the aluminum beverage can really is the key driver of the recycling system. It's the most valuable commodity to many of these MRFs. And so the more aluminum cans we have, the better recycling is for any product, because it really does go to support and fund the operation of so many MRFs.
We've covered an awful lot of ground already. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back. Hey, extended producer responsibility change makers, let's unite. Meet me and the Earth911 team in Portland, Oregon this September at the 2023 U.S. Product Stewardship Forum, the nation's only conference dedicated to EPR legislation and best practices. The circular economy is being crafted today, brick by brick, with EPR legislation, and packaging recycling efforts are leading the way. 2022 saw unprecedented momentum, with 18 states considering over 60 EPR bills, and 6 became law. This year in Portland, you'll find exclusive insights from globally recognized EPR experts. The Product Stewardship Institute invites you, the movers who will shake their regional recycling and composting systems with new ideas. Network. Hone your EPR knowledge and form strategic alliances to drive the circular results this world needs. Now is the time for producer responsibility. So join us at the 2023 U.S. Product Stewardship Forum in Portland, Oregon. That happens from September 11th to 14th. Register today at productstewardship.us. Product stewardship is all one word, no space, no dash. Productstewardship.us. Be a part of the solution, because stewardship starts with you. Let's get back to the discussion with Jennifer Bogs, Director of Global Sustainability at Crown Holdings Incorporated, one of the largest packaging manufacturers in the world. Now, one of the goals you have for 2040 is 100% renewable energy use. Are you confident that the grid and wind and solar and other renewable generation investments are sufficient to get us there as a society, so that you have access to enough renewable energy?
Great question. I think it depends on where we're talking about, of course. So Crown being global, we do have some areas where it may be more difficult to achieve that, given the capacity of the grid that we're all aware of, depending on where we are. So, but globally, certain regions are more poised and have put more efforts into building that grid base so that we may achieve that. We are looking at other ways, though, as well, that are not so grid focused on achieving our renewable energy and renewable electricity goals. So Crown does prioritize the use of on-site renewables over any other mechanism. And so going forward in the future, you will see more of that from Crown.
Do you have data about what percentage of your facilities are currently running on their own generation?
You put me in a tough spot there, Mitch. I'm not sure that I have that offhand, but in our last sustainability report, you will see that globally we're about 34% of the way to we're in absolute terms 34% renewable, and then that puts us at about 45% of the way toward our goal.
How's the United States stand in comparison to other regions?
So in the US, we have operated for the past several years a virtual purchase power agreement, or VPPA, and that is a wind farm that we operate in, or excuse me, we don't operate it, but we benefit from it in Texas. And so we are in the US, probably we have some of the highest renewable energy in the company.
Now, we talked earlier about lightweighting. I want to dig into a little more detail there. So far, you've reduced the average weight of your 12-ounce cans by 6.4%, which is about 60% of the way to your goals. So can you explain how much we can reduce the volume of aluminum use using lightweighting?
Sure. So we have a corporate goal to achieve 10% lightweighting reduction by 2030, and the company is confident that we can achieve that without any quality limitations in place. So I will say by 2030, you will see 10% lightweighting from us. And insofar as anything additional, I am sure that is what the good people in our R&D department are working on.
Does that corporate goal to reduce it by 10% really represent the physical limit of lightweighting, or is it possible for you to go further? And we always hear about physical limits, but then we always transcend them.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I can't speak directly to what our R&D people are working on at the moment, but I will say that, yeah, why not? I think that absolutely we can work on ways to reduce that. Of course, I don't want to be the person that
Sure.
is over promising here, but I think, to put it maybe a little bit cornerly, where there's a will, there's a way. And
Mhm.
you've seen this from us. Actually, we've highlighted it, another plug for our recent sustainability report and our annual report. But we've highlighted this in one of our progress areas in our lightweighting and also working together with one of our customers to ensure that they had a product that they really liked. And this is a product that we won awards for. And it is what we lovingly call as our golf ball can. And you'll see from the golf ball can that we have made reductions in the amount of aluminum that we've used, and as well have helped our customer to achieve their stated goal, which was anti-counterfeiting. So in changing the way that our product was shaped from a straight wall to
Mhm.
having this golf ball type of exterior,
A
we
dimpling?
actually,
You mean a dimpling?
correct, yes.
Okay.
And so in doing so, we actually reduced drastically the amount of aluminum that was used. So again, this is partially customer led, and but due to that project, we were able to significantly reduce the CO2 footprint of our can.
Now, another area where you've got a lot of focus is water reuse and reduction. Aluminum consumes about an average of 14.6 gallons per pound produced, according to the United States Geographical Service or Geographic Service. How, how is Crown and your manufacturing partners working to reduce water usage overall? What kinds of changes are you making?
We're making a lot of different changes. So we are working both at our facilities to use less water in terms of tightening up our operational efficiencies, making sure that we are more standard across our plants in terms of how much water we use. We've seen that it is based on regionality, and in part, sometimes it does depend on who we're selling to, whether, for example, the bottler we sell to requires a certain chemical coating or something like that, or a rinse that we would apply. But, uh, you know, barring that, we are making strides to make sure that all of our facilities globally enable us to reach our goal of, by the end of 2025, to reduce our water usage by 20%. And so we're doing things, simple things such as making sure, you know, nozzles aren't left running, that we're not overusing water. We're also doing more innovative things such as recycling water where it's possible to do so,
Mhm.
and inputting different equipment, different technologies that work in our regular operational processes, but happen to reduce water. Some simple examples of that would be such as an adiabatic cooling tower, or improved technologies where it makes sense to do so if we're running out of the useful life of said equipment. Also, this year, Mitch, Crown held its first ever Global Water Summit. And this was a really special summit because it involved our employees from so many of our different facilities. It was led by our global sustainability team, but relied on the input from our engineering teams and our manufacturing divisions. And we all came together globally with all of our divisions. And the only thing we talked about for 3 days was water. And so this was really cool. We shared best practices as a team, and a lot of the different facilities started talking to each other about water, especially, and looking to see what we could do in terms of water. As well, we also have water replenishment goals. And so Crown is a endorser of the CEO water mandate. And we are also working with the Water Action Hub on the 100 priority basins
Mhm.
to replenish those. And Crown has supported water replenishment over the past couple of years. We're really ramping up our efforts there. You'll see in the future a couple new projects that we'll be talking about next year.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about is the fact that even though aluminum and steel are described as infinitely recyclable, you do lose between 2 and 3% of the material in each yield and material in each recycling process. So it sounds like we're going to need to continue to mine bauxite. So two questions. Is Crown looking at how to responsibly source bauxite, ensure that people are treated well as nature is taken care of? And are you considering how you might mine landfills for all of that aluminum that is lying around that we might be able to pull back into useful production?
Very interesting questions, Mitch. So yes, Crown is looking into how to better source our raw materials, and we're doing that through a few different mechanisms. One of them is our own procurement or sourcing department. As stated, we have a 20 by 30 goal to uh, increase the responsible and ethical sourcing of our raw materials. And so they're working on that. In conjunction with that, Crown has recently received ASI, or Aluminum Stewardship Initiative certification, in a few of our key markets, and we're working on that for others across the company. And part of ASI is that you do have a responsible sourcing component there, and this requires participation among the whole value chain. So in order for us to be able to sell an ASI product, we have to source our material from a supplier who is ASI certified. And again, there is this component of ASI certification that covers responsible and ethical sourcing. And so then our supplier must then purchase from their own vendors or suppliers responsibly sourced material to be able to ultimately sell that up the value chain as being certified material. And then you also asked about how maybe we could mine landfills. I think that's super interesting, and perhaps is something that our suppliers would be more directly involved in. But I see where you're going, and absolutely, I think there's going to be a need to and a demand to get as much aluminum as we can back. And that is why Crown is focusing so much on increasing recycling rates so that we have that capacity in order to satisfy not only just the demands of putting out aluminum cans, but also our customers and their customers' demand for more sustainable products.
So this idea of urban mining may be viable or not. I'd be curious to know whether oxidized aluminum can be recycled. But you just raised an interesting point about Crown's role in the enabling of recycling. And this has to do with extended producer responsibility. Rather than you, it is your customers, the beverage companies, that tend to be impacted by extended producer responsibility. So what is Crown's role in enabling that recycling system in partnership with producers who might, or beverage companies that might have extended producer responsibility obligations in a state or in a region?
So you heard me speak earlier about smart deposits and EPR, that where it makes sense in a certain region, that Crown will support our customers and the system in ensuring that that does happen and that we can get as many cans back as we can. I think Crown's priority in that system and in terms is to give our feedback on how such EPR schemes might be implemented and whether we think that what is being proposed or is in place in a certain region makes sense.
Now, you're in a very interesting position because you make the cans, but the cans are then distributed by the beverage manufacturers. And thinking about extended producer responsibility as falling on one entity in the supply chain may be the wrong way to go. How does Crown think about itself as the facilitator of a full life cycle recycling infrastructure? Do you talk about that with the board, for instance?
So Crown plays a role here in ensuring that the cans can communicate the recyclability of the can. And so whether that operates in an EPR system and whether there is, for example, maybe a barcode or something like that on the product, that is really up to the customer to demand and have on their label for their product. But Crown is very active in discussions with our customers, with our industry group associations in terms of increasing the real estate on whatever product it might be to include communication on there about its recyclability in whatever recycling system that might be. And Crown is absolutely part of the circular economy insofar as the manufacture of the aluminum cans.
Mhm.
And so, we really see ourselves there in terms of the circular economy as doing our part in terms of getting the message out that cans are recyclable, getting the um, support that we need and working to get that support that we have more recyclability of the cans globally. And so that's really where Crown is able to play a key factor there. We've done this in a few different ways globally. Like I mentioned earlier, we're active supporters of Every Can Count through our industry group associations as well. Crown does some things on our own. We have celebrated most recently World Environment Day, and you might check out our LinkedIn post on this where we supported some recycling efforts as well. This year in the US, we supported a rodeo and were able to go from a rodeo where they recycled no cans in Texas to recycling. We're still waiting on the exact numbers, but as you can imagine, a really well attended rodeo and how many cans there were this year, being able to bring that recycling to a community really was a really fun thing to see this year that our plants organically thought to promote and support. So that's Crown's role. We talk with our customers about these issues. We work on them as well ourselves where we see that there are opportunities for us to do so.
The Texas is a good situation is a good test because it's well known that the Texas recovery rates are much lower, and it appears to be because it's not manly to throw a can into a recycling bin. But if you can change that pattern in a rodeo, you are making progress that we need to see. What are if you can't make net zero all up as an industry, are there trade-offs in terms of better water performance or waste management that will make it all overall a better environmental outcome than running the way we run the industry today?
Absolutely. So regardless of whether net zero is achieved or when it is achieved, there absolutely, even if we make some level of progress, we're going to be leaving things better than they are today. And it's something that's very much needed. Again, I will point out that we as Crown have net zero goals, and our aluminum industry also has recently come together on their net zero roadmap as well. So very excited to see the progress that will be put forth toward these efforts as they are very important. And as about the trade-offs there, yet to be seen on what the future priorities will be in this new world with climate change, whether water scarcity in certain regions might be more difficult and important than maybe a temperature increase for others. Yeah. So, really that's something that we will have to see played out. I will say that Crown as a company does do risk assessment and analysis there, and we do have, for example, we have, projections based on the RCP pathways and such or SSPs, excuse me, whatever they're called now, for the impacts that, we might be facing in this future world.
So you've got a really complex story and a lot of moving parts. What's the best way for folks to keep up on Crown's progress?
The best way for folks to keep up on our progress is to follow us on LinkedIn. And also, if you want as well, please check out our website at crowncork.com. And you can also find us on LinkedIn at the same, Crown Holdings Inc.
All right. Well, hey, Jennifer, thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Mitch.
That was our conversation with Jennifer Bogs, Director of Global Sustainability at Crown Holdings Incorporated. And you can find Crown's website and sustainability reporting at crowncork.com. Crown Cork's all one word, no space, no dash, crowncork.com. Aluminum packaging is a growing alternative to plastic, and not just in the beverage industry. Beauty and personal care products are beginning to embrace aluminum, and the metal is also used as a liner in many cartons. That means that society needs to step up its aluminum recycling game, capturing more cans and packaging for recycling. Raising overall aluminum recovery rates from 34.9% that it is today and increasing can recovery rates to the 90% plus levels that you see in countries like Brazil and China is essential to Crown and other can manufacturers reaching their goals of 80% recycled material in their cans by 2030. As we've talked about with previous guests, recycling success in some countries is built on a caste of trash pickers that need to be well cared for rather than exploited. Here in the United States, we're not going to stand for setting up that kind of a tiered society. So deposit laws can ensure that there is an incentive to pick up and recycle a can that produces a viable life. But we can go further by enabling new recycling enterprises that fan out and collect cans, foil, and scrap aluminum profitably and equitably. We might even begin to mine our landfills in a way that cleans up our communities, as well as creates new opportunity in low-income communities that are entrepreneurial. The single-stream curbside and municipal system, which is an important focus for investment, is not sufficient to collect everything, and startup recycling companies can fill the gaps. As Jennifer mentioned, there's an immense amount of value in the easy-to-recycle materials like aluminum and steel. Let's find a way to make it accessible to anyone with the will to collect and recycle, not just cans, but plastic and glass bottles, electronics, and the many other products that currently go largely unrecycled. The can industry can serve as a guide on a flag that all of us can follow by setting a good example, and hopefully they will do so. We'll keep track of what Crown and other can companies are doing. Hey, folks, I hope you take a moment to share this podcast or any of the other interviews that we've done on sustainability in your ear with your friends, family, your coworkers. If you take a moment to write a review on your favorite podcast platform, that will help your neighbors find us. You folks are the amplifiers that spread more ideas so we can create a less wasteful society. Tell your friends, family, everyone you know that they can find Sustainability in Your Ear on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, and other fine purveyors of podcast goodness. Thank you, folks, for your support. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe. This is Earth911, and we will be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.